The sound of gunshots tore through the dusty air of Redemption's only saloon. 3 bodies hit the wooden floor before the echo of the last shot faded. Samuel Judge Blackwood stood amidst the smoke, his weathered face impassive as he holstered his Colt Peacemaker with a practiced twist of his wrist. Blood pooled around the dead men's bodies, outlaws who'd made the fatal mistake of drawing on a legend. "Law's dead on the frontier," Samuel said, his voice like iron striking stone as he tossed a coin to the trembling barkeep. "But I ain't." That was 1,877. The day Samuel Blackwood reminded the Arizona Territory why men whispered his name in fear. 5 years later, that same hand that dealt swift justice now gently braided the golden hair of his 8-year-old daughter, Emma. Their home at Widow's Creek Ranch stood as a monument to Samuel's new life, one far removed from the blood-soaked badge he'd once worn. 23 notches marked the handle of the Colt locked away in his safe. 23 men sent to judgment by the judge himself. Samuel's callous fingers finished Emma's braid as dawn painted the Arizona sky. His eyes, still sharp at 45, scanned the horizon, a habit from years tracking men who didn't want to be found. The Winchester 73 hung above the mantel wasn't for decoration. The modified Colt Peacemaker with custom ivory grips remained loaded in its locked box. A man with Samuel's past never truly retired. "Pa, can I ride to the creek today?" Emma's innocent question pulled him back from darker thoughts. "Not today, little one," Samuel replied, his expression softening only for her. "Town day. Stay close." Before they left, Samuel led Emma to the barn for their morning ritual. She stood straight-backed as he placed an empty tin can on a fence post. "Remember what I taught you," he instructed, kneeling beside her, "if trouble comes." Emma nodded solemnly. "Go limp, then strike. Run zigzag. Find cover." Samuel's approval showed in the slight nod. 5 years since Clara's death had taught him one truth. In this world, even children needed to know how to survive. The ride to Redemption was tense. Samuel noticed the changes immediately. Fewer farmers on the roads, armed men patrolling the streets, fear etched on familiar faces. Victor Harlan's men were everywhere, sporting distinctive red bandanas. Former Confederate officer turned mining baron, Harlan had seized control of the silver mine, and with it, the town's soul. Samuel kept his head down as he tied his horse outside Jenkins's general store. Inside, whispered conversations stopped when he entered. "Mrs." Jenkins' eyes darted nervously to the armed men across the street before leaning close. "They took the Miller farm yesterday," she whispered, pretending to show him fabric. "Said they owed taxes. 3rd family this month." Samuel nodded silently, gathering his supplies. As he paid, Jenkins lowered his voice further. "Harlan's boy bought himself a new girl last night. $20, they say. Teacher from a wagon train, fighting spirit, won't last long with that one." Samuel's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Not his fight. Not anymore. Emma needed him alive, not righteous. That night, the thunderstorm rolled across the plains like artillery fire, rattling the windows of the ranch house. Samuel sat cleaning his rifle by lamplight when the sound came, not thunder but hoofbeats, desperate and fading. His hand moved instinctively to the shotgun by the door. 20 yards from his porch lay a crumpled form in the mud, half dead and soaked to the bone. A woman, barely conscious, blood mixing with rainwater beneath her torn dress. When Samuel approached, she raised a knife with trembling hands, her eyes wild with fear and defiance. "Kill me quick," she gasped through bloodied lips. "I won't go back." Lightning illuminated the cruel welts on her wrists, the bruises on her face. Samuel recognized the signs. He'd seen them on prisoners of war. In her other hand, she clutched a leather satchel, protecting it even as consciousness slipped away. "Pa?" Emma's small voice came from the doorway. "Is she an angel?" "No, child," Samuel replied, lifting the unconscious woman. "But someone tried to send her to heaven early. The woman's name was Elizabeth. When fever finally released its grip 3 days later, her story emerged between fits of coughing. A schoolteacher from Boston, captured when Apache raiders attacked her wagon train 2 months ago, sold to Harlan's son like cattle at auction. He liked to hurt me, she stated flatly, as Samuel changed the bandage on her shoulder. Said it was my education that needed breaking first. Her escape had been violent and desperate. A stolen letter opener plunged into Harlan Jr.'s shoulder, a mad dash through rain-soaked streets. The satchel she'd clutched contained ledgers and letters, evidence of Harlan's gun-running operation with the Apache, weapons paid for in silver and human lives. Emma took to Elizabeth immediately, sitting beside her sickbed, reading from her primer. Samuel watched from the doorway, something long dead stirring in his chest. His daughter hadn't smiled like that since Clara died. The warning came at dawn, thundering hooves and the bark of hounds. Samuel spotted them from the barn, 2 of Harlan's men tracking Elizabeth through the storm-washed mud. He stepped into their path, shotgun resting casually in the crook of his arm. Lost, gentlemen? His tone was conversational, but the men tensed, recognizing something in his stance. Looking for a woman? The taller one said, hand hovering near his pistol. Thief. Stole from Mr. Harlan. Ain't seen any woman, Samuel replied, eyes cold as winter steel. Best move along. The second man smirked, spitting tobacco juice near Samuel's boots. Harlan says check every house. Step aside, old man. They never saw it coming. Samuel moved with a speed that belied his years. The butt of the shotgun cracked against the first man's jaw. As he dropped, Samuel's boot connected with the second man's knee. The sickening crunch was followed by a howl of pain. Samuel's Colt appeared in his hand like a conjurer's trick. Hammer cocked. You tell Harlan, Samuel said, pressing the barrel against the whimpering man's forehead. This land is mine. Anyone who comes looking for trouble will find it. Samuel dragged them both to their horses, lashing them to their saddles face down. As they rode away, Elizabeth stood in the doorway, watching with grim satisfaction. You've done it now, she said quietly. Harlan won't stop. You know that. Samuel holstered his weapon, his face carved from granite. I know. You're him, aren't you? Elizabeth asked, realization dawning. The judge, the marshal, they all feared. Samuel didn't answer. He simply walked to the barn and began preparing for war. Samuel's hidden cellar revealed the arsenal of a man who understood the language of violence. Rifle racks lined one wall, ammunition boxes stacked neatly in corners. Revolvers, shotguns, and a Spencer carbine hung from pegs, each weapon cleaned, loaded, and deadly as the man who wielded them. My husband used to hunt, Elizabeth observed, running her fingers over a polished gun stock. Never saw him handle a weapon like you do. Samuel checked the action on a Sharps rifle, the metallic click echoing in the underground room. Your husband hunted animals. Different skill. He handed her a Navy Colt, smaller than his Peacemaker but deadly in the right hands. Hammer back, aim center, 6 shots, make 'em count. Elizabeth's hands didn't tremble as she took the weapon. Samuel noted her grip, not a stranger to firearms then. Another layer to the schoolteacher's story. I was an Army daughter before I was a teacher, she explained, catching his glance. Father served at Antietam. Samuel's mind flashed to blood-soaked fields, blue and gray uniforms indistinguishable under crimson stains. The scar across his ribs throbbed with phantom pain. Union Scout, 16 battles. A lifetime ago. War teaches fast, he muttered. Or you de slow. They spent the day fortifying the ranch, firing positions established at windows, escape routes planned, water barrels filled. Samuel showed Elizabeth how to reload under pressure, how to judge distance in the deceptive desert light. The approaching rider that afternoon wasn't one of Harlan's men. Jason Tucker, the town sheriff, rode with his hat pulled low, badge hidden beneath his coat. Young, maybe 30, with fear etched into his features. He dismounted awkwardly, eyes darting to the armed woman on the porch. They're coming. Blackwood, Tucker blurted, refusing Samuel's offer of water. Harlan's offering $500 for the woman, $1,000 for you. Samuel's face remained stoic. That all? Tucker swallowed hard. He knows who you are, says it's time to finish what started in Texas. The words landed like a physical blow. Texas. 15 years ago. Clara's grave. What started in Texas was Harlan ordering the murder of my wife. Samuel's voice turned deadly quiet. You tell that Confederate bastard I'm still breathing. That's his failure. As Tucker prepared to leave, dust clouds appeared on the horizon. Not Harlan's men, farmers and townspeople. 3 weathered ranchers, the town blacksmith, Doc Peterson. Men Samuel had traded with but never befriended. The oldest rancher, Ferguson, spoke first. Harlan took my south pasture yesterday. Says I owe back taxes I never heard of. The blacksmith nodded grimly. Broke my boy's arm when he objected to their protection fees. One by one, they told similar stories. Harlan wasn't just taking over, he was systematically destroying anyone who stood in his way. We heard the judge was back, Ferguson said finally. Thought maybe he might stand with honest folk. Samuel's gaze hardened. The judge retired when they buried my wife. And who'll bury your daughter when Harlan comes? Doc Peterson asked quietly. Man, like that doesn't leave witnesses, Blackwood. Before Samuel could answer, the attack came. Riders appeared on the ridge. 6 men, rifles glinting in the setting Sunday. The first shots kicked up dust at Samuel's feet. Inside, he bellowed, his Colt already in hand. The siege of Widow's Creek Ranch had begun. Night fell like a shroud over the battlefield. 3 of Harlan's men lay dead in the dirt, cut down by Samuel's unerring aim. The others had retreated beyond rifle range, waiting for reinforcements. Inside, the townspeople huddled by lamplight, transformed from shopkeepers to soldiers by circumstance. Samuel moved like a ghost through the darkened house, checking defenses, reassigning positions. The pain from the bullet graze on his shoulder was nothing compared to the ice in his veins. He found Elizabeth by the back window, the Navy Colt steady in her hands. 2 men tried to circle around, she said without looking up. They won't try again. Samuel saw the fresh blood on her sleeve, not hers. Where did a Boston schoolteacher learn to shoot like that? He asked. Elizabeth's smile was sharp as a knife edge. Who said I was always a schoolteacher? Dawn revealed the ranch eerily quiet. No attackers on the horizon, no movement in the scrubland. Something was wrong. Samuel felt it in his bones. Emma? His daughter hadn't come for breakfast. Emma? The house erupted in frantic searching. The child was gone, her bed empty, window unlatched. On her pillow lay a folded paper, secured with a red bandana. The girl for the woman and the ledgers. Come to Salvation Mine, alone. Samuel's roar of anguish shook the rafters. He stormed to the gun room, loading weapons with mechanical precision, strapping on ammunition belts. You can't go alone, Elizabeth argued, following him. It's suicide. I'm getting my daughter back, Samuel replied, his voice terrifyingly calm. Then I'm killing Victor Harlan. The rancher, Ferguson, stepped forward. Not alone, you ain't. They got my boy working that mine. Time we took back what's ours. One by one, the men nodded their agreement. This wasn't just about Emma anymore. This was about redemption itself. Samuel paused, years of tactical thinking asserting themselves. We need more guns, and someone who knows that mine. Elizabeth produced a rough map from the stolen papers. The main entrance is heavily guarded, but there's a secondary shaft here. Her finger traced a path. Ventilation tunnels, narrow but passable. Samuel studied the map, memories of wartime operations surfacing. Ferguson, gather ammunition. Doc, medical supplies. We'll need lookouts here and here. He marked positions on the map. And we'll need dynamite. He added, surprising them. Blacksmith, can you prepare charges? Small, controlled, enough to create diversions at these points. His finger tapped specific locations on the map. The blacksmith nodded grimly. Used to blast for railroad crews. I can do it. What about getting close enough to place them? Elizabeth asked. Samuel's eyes met hers. That's where I come in. That night, Samuel rode alone to a small cabin tucked in the foothills. No light burned in the window, but the door opened before Samuel could knock. A mountain of a man filled the doorway, dark skin glistening in the moonlight, a shotgun held casually in massive hands. "Figured you'd show up eventually, Captain," the man rumbled, white teeth flashing in a grim smile. "Need your help, Big Mike," Samuel replied. "One last mission." Mike Washington had served with Samuel during the war, a freed slave turned Union scout. They'd saved each other's lives a dozen times over. Now he worked as a silver prospector, avoiding town and its complications. "Harlan," Mike guessed, stepping aside to let Samuel enter. "Been waiting for someone to stand up to that Confederate devil." Together, they infiltrated Redemption that night, slipping past patrols, gathering intelligence. The town had transformed into an armed camp, Harlan's men everywhere, citizens locked in their homes after sunset. From the shadows, they watched Harlan's lieutenant drill new arrivals, hired guns brought in from as far as Kansas City. Nearly 20 hardened killers, each wearing the red bandana of Harlan's makeshift army. "War's coming," Mike whispered as they retreated, "just like old times." Samuel's eyes reflected moonlight like a predator's. "No, this time, we strike first." The plan was set. While Samuel would seemingly surrender himself, drawing attention to the mine office, the townsmen would position dynamite charges at strategic locations. Ferguson and Mike would lead a group of miners in revolt once the explosions began. Elizabeth would coordinate from the ridge, using the Sharp's rifle to eliminate sentries. The next morning, Samuel rode alone into the heart of darkness. Salvation Mine loomed on the hillside like an open wound in the earth. Guards tensed as he approached. Rifles trained on his chest. He rode slowly, hands visible, the picture of surrender. Victor Harlan waited in the mine office, tall and aristocratic even at 60, his Confederate colonels bearing evident in his ramrod posture. The silver at his temples matched the elaborate pistols on his desk. "The great Judge Blackwood," Harlan drawled, Southern accent thick with mockery, "finally learned to kneel." Samuel stood impassive, hands loose at his sides. "Where's my daughter?" Harlan gestured to a guard who produced a small cloth doll, Emma's favorite. "Safe, for now. I want to see her." "And I wanted to see my brother before you hanged him in Abilene," Harlan countered, ice in his voice. "We don't always get what we want." The office door banged open as Harlan Jr. entered, a brutish mirror of his refined father. Fresh bandages visible beneath his shirt, a livid scar forming on his face where Elizabeth's blade had struck. "Hang him now, father," Jr. snarled, hand resting on his gun. "I want to watch him kick." Samuel's eyes never left Harlan Sr., 2 decades of hatred compressed into a single stare. "Your brother was a murderer and a coward, shot my deputy in the back before I brought him in, just like his kin." Harlan's composure cracked. "You took everything from me." "Not yet," Samuel replied, voice deadly quiet. "But I'm about to." The first explosion shook the building like an earthquake, then another and another. Salvation Mine was burning. Chaos erupted as Harlan's men scrambled to respond to explosions across the mining complex. Samuel had used the meeting as cover. While all eyes watched him surrender, the townsmen had positioned dynamite at strategic points throughout the operation. Guards raced past the office windows as flames engulfed the ore processing shed. Shouts and gunfire echoed across the compound. Harlan Sr. leveled a pistol at Samuel's head. "What have you done?" Samuel didn't flinch, brought judgment. Harlan Jr. drew his weapon, but Samuel was already moving. His boot connected with the desk, sending it crashing into Harlan Sr. As Jr. fired, Samuel rolled, coming up with a derringer hidden in his sleeve. The small caliber weapon barked twice. Jr. screamed, dropping his gun, blood streaming from his shattered wrist. His father struggled beneath the overturned desk. More explosions rocked the building. Through the window, Samuel saw Mike Washington leading a charge of townspeople against the distracted guards. Elizabeth moved among them, rifle in hand. Samuel secured Jr. with his own belt, then turned to Harlan Sr., who had freed himself and retrieved a shotgun from the wall. "You won't find her," Harlan snarled, weapon trained on Samuel's chest. My men will kill your precious daughter the moment they hear gunfire in this office." "Your men are a little busy right now," Samuel replied, nodding toward the window where the battle raged. Harlan's finger tightened on the trigger. 15 years I've waited to erase your bloodline, Blackwood, just like you erased mine." The shotgun roared, but Samuel had already dropped to the floor. The blast tore through the space where he'd stood. Rolling to his feet, Samuel tackled Harlan, driving him against the wall. The older man fought with surprising strength, landing a solid blow to Samuel's wounded shoulder. Pain exploded through Samuel's body, but he pressed forward, grappling for the second shotgun barrel. They crashed across the office, locked in mortal combat, each seeking the advantage that would end the other's life. Outside, the tide had turned. The townspeople, led by Mike and Elizabeth, pushed Harlan's surprise men back. Miners emerged from the tunnels, joining the fight against their oppressors. Samuel and Harlan crashed through the office door, still wrestling for control of the shotgun. They tumbled down the wooden steps, landing hard on the packed dirt of the mine yard. The impact separated them, both men scrambling for weapons. Harlan found his feet first, drawing a hidden derringer from his boot. "Die knowing I'll find her, Blackwood. Your daughter will join her mother." The shot that rang out didn't come from Harlan's gun. Elizabeth stood 20 yards away, Samuel's Colt Peacemaker smoking in her hand. Harlan staggered, crimson blooming across his chest. "That's for my sister," Elizabeth said, advancing with the steady pace of an executioner. Samuel's world tilted on its axis. "Sister? Clara was my sister," Elizabeth confirmed, eyes never leaving the dying Harlan. "I've hunted this monster for 7 years, since the day he had her killed to punish you." Harlan laughed through bloodied teeth. "The school teacher act was convincing," he gasped. "Almost as good as when Clara played the devoted wife to get close to the judge." Samuel lunged forward, gripping Harlan by the throat. "You're lying!" "Ask her," Harlan wheezed, life fading from his eyes. "Ask her why her sister really married you." Elizabeth fired again, silencing him forever. "Don't listen to him, Samuel. Clara loved you." Samuel turned to Elizabeth, confusion and fury battling in his eyes. "What is he talking about?" "Clara was sent to spy on you," Elizabeth admitted, lowering the gun. "Our father worked for the government. They wanted to know if the judge could be trusted. But she fell in love with you, Samuel. Real love. When Harlan tried to turn her against you, she refused. That's why he killed her." A scream cut through the air, high and childish. Emma's voice? Samuel raced toward the sound, toward the mine entrance where Harlan Jr. had emerged, dragging Emma by her hair, his uninjured hand pressing a knife to her throat. Blood soaked his bandaged arm. "Drop your weapons," he screamed, spittle flying from his lips. "All of you." The fighting around them stuttered to a halt. Samuel stopped 10 paces away, hands raised. "Let her go, Junior. It's over." "Nothing's over." Junior's voice cracked with hysteria. "My father built this. It's mine now." Emma's terrified eyes locked onto Samuel's. In that silent exchange, something passed between father and daughter, trust absolute and unquestioning. "Your father's dead," Samuel said calmly, taking a small step forward. "You're alone." "Stay back!" Junior pressed the blade tighter, drawing a thin line of blood on Emma's neck. Samuel took another step. "Emma, remember what I taught you?" The little girl's eyes widened slightly. Then, with practiced precision, she went limp, dead weight in Junior's grasp. As he struggled to maintain his hold, Emma drove her heel into his instep and twisted away. The moment she cleared his grasp, Samuel's hand flashed to his boot knife. The blade spun through the air, burying itself in Junior's chest. He toppled backward, shock frozen on his face. Emma raced into her father's arms. Samuel clutched her tight, burying his face in her hair, shoulders shaking with silent gratitude. Elizabeth approached slowly, the peacemaker lowered. Behind her, the townspeople rounded up the last of Harlan's men. "Samuel," she began, her voice uncertain. Samuel looked up, his expression unreadable. Was any of it true? The school teacher? The Apache attack? I was a teacher, Elizabeth replied, but I came here hunting Harlan. I let myself be captured to get close to his operation, to find proof of what he did to Clara. And Clara, what you said about her mission. Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. Clara started as an agent, yes, but her letters to me changed. She wrote about you, about the good man behind the legend. She loved you, Samuel, truly loved you. That's why Harlan killed her, not just to hurt you, but because she refused to betray you when he tried to turn her. Samuel stood, still holding Emma close. I don't know what to believe anymore. Believe that we won today, Elizabeth said, gesturing to the liberated mine, the triumphant townspeople. Believe that Emma is safe. 1 month later, Samuel stood before Clara's grave, the desert wind tugging at his coat. The marker was simple, her name, 2 dates, and the words, beloved wife and mother. Justice is done, Clara, he said quietly. I know the truth now, how you came to me, how you stayed for love. I'm grateful for the time we had, for our daughter. Behind him, Emma waited patiently beside their wagon, Elizabeth at her side. The two had formed a bond that Samuel couldn't bring himself to break, despite the complicated truth of Elizabeth's arrival in their lives. Redemption was healing. Sheriff Tucker had found his courage, organizing a proper town council. The mine operated under Ferguson's supervision now, profits shared fairly with the workers. Samuel had declined offers to take up his old badge, choosing instead the quiet of his ranch. Pa, can we go home now? Emma called, the sun setting fire to her golden hair, so like her mother's. Samuel touched the gravestone one last time, then turned toward his future. The evening found them on the ranch porch, watching the sunset paint the desert in impossible colors. Emma had gone to bed, leaving Samuel and Elizabeth in comfortable silence. Will you stay? He asked finally, not looking at her. Elizabeth studied her hands. After everything, do you want me to? Samuel turned to face her, his expression resolute. Clara would have wanted Emma to know her family, to have a woman to guide her. He paused. And I reckon I could use someone watching my back. A smile ghosted across Elizabeth's lips. Is that all, Marshal Blackwood? Before Samuel could answer, dust rose on the horizon, riders approaching fast. His hand moved instinctively to the peacemaker at his hip. Army dispatch, he muttered, recognizing the uniform as the rider drew closer. Something's wrong. The soldier reined in hard, saluting despite Samuel's civilian status. Captain Blackwood, Colonel Hayes sends his respects. We need the judge one more time, sir. Apache war party hit the stage to Tucson. Hostages taken. Samuel glanced at Elizabeth, then to the darkened window where Emma slept. His family, his reason to stay alive, but also his reason to make the world safer. Tell the colonel the judge is retired, Samuel said, checking his weapon with practiced ease. He looked at Elizabeth, something unspoken passing between them. But Samuel Blackwood will ride at dawn. Elizabeth nodded, her decision made. We'll both ride. As the soldier departed, Samuel and Elizabeth stood side by side on the porch. Not lovers, not yet, but partners forged in fire and blood. Behind them, a home worth defending. Ahead, justice that needed serving. One last ride, Samuel said, holstering his weapon. Elizabeth's hand found his in the gathering darkness. One last ride. But they both knew the frontier would always need the judge, and Samuel Blackwood would always answer the call.